What's up, guys? So, home from South Florida, EUROTRIPPER 10. The 10th anniversary of EUROTRIPPER was in Fort Myers, Florida over the weekend. Made the 10 to 12 hour drive down. Had a great time seeing everyone. I didn't do the best job filming. So, we're going to recap some stuff because I did film some clips, mostly with my phone. Wasted a really good opportunity to get a really good episode, if not possibly two episodes for the time we were down there. But I kind of just absorbed the experience of being down there and just kind of hanging out with friends and not worrying about filming and trying to create content. So on the way down to Florida, we stopped in Ocala at the Garlits Drag Racing Museum. I'd actually been here when I was a kid, probably between 10 and 12 years old. Family was down in Orlando for a Disney vacation, and my father wanted to take a day to drive up to Ocala to see this place. So I hadn't been here since I'd become an adult, so it was really quite a different experience. Don Garlits is one of the most legendary top fuel drag racers of all time. He's heralded as one of the first guys to start putting the motors behind the drivers in top fuel dragsters, whereas before they were in front of you. And if you had any issues with the drivetrain or motor, that put the driver in severe peril at 200 miles an hour. So to see some of these early rear-engined dragsters here in his museum was pretty incredible. They messed with all sorts of different orientations. They even had a transverse-mounted Hemi rear-engine dragster here. Basically, they were messing with torque and the way the engine would move under torque, and they were thinking that it would give the rear wheels more grip if the motor was mounted transverse. And it's just so crazy to see some of this early 1960s, 70s, and 80s rear-engined and front-engined top fuel dragsters. And that Don himself was the guy that was kind of spearheading the movement of technology in top fuel drag racing. I remember when I was a kid, when we went here, Don's wife was the woman that was at the desk when you walked into the entrance to the museum, and Don himself came out from the office. And this was probably in 1996, 97. And I remember as a kid getting a chance to talk to Don Garlits and his wife. So when we first got to Fort Myers, it was the evening, and we got dinner with Paul, who puts the show on, and a few other friends, and just kind of settled in. And the next day, Friday, before the show, was the Volkscrack pre-meet, and that was over at an outlet mall, and got a chance to see some friends there. My friend Scott had his yellow Porsche there. A couple other really cool cars showed up. It was kind of cool to just hang out with 20, 30 people the day before the show in some great weather. It was like 75, almost 80 degrees. Sun was shining. Could not complain about the weather that we drove to in Florida. EUROTRIPPER 10 went awesome. This was the 10th anniversary of the show. It was really awesome getting a chance to see everybody and to have the honor of making the awards for the show. I really want to thank Paul for that. But the weather was great, and overall, it was just an awesome, awesome day. I can't wait for next year. I brought the 700 the previous year. This year was without a car in the show field, but I'm really looking forward to bringing something next year as well. right, so since I was horrible at this whole YouTube thing and didn't film enough for a full episode while I was in Florida, which is ridiculous in my opinion. My friend Mark was there in his bagged Lamborghini Diablo. My friend Mike Unwin was there in his newly finished 356 replica that he built from the ground up, basically, and his notchback, which is incredible on E50 BBSs. Just a lot of friends were there with some incredible cars, and I really should have taken the opportunity to film and talk to them and like really kind of give you guys some insight on some of these people's insane projects and cars. But since I didn't, and I really wish I had, we're going to squeeze a little bit more into this episode of what I'm getting to today, first day back in the shop. And it's something real simple, but something I'm super stoked on. I got some spacers for the Enkei RS3s in the EF Civic. They're real modest offsets on those 3 spokes. They're like 16 by 7, I believe, if I remember correctly. ET like 30 or something like that. So they sit pretty sunken on the EF. These are 25 mil all around. I've pulled some tentative measurements up front and in the rear of that car, and I think these will work perfectly for the size of tire I have on it. And I do have a small tire. I've got a 165/45 on 7s. They don't stretch a lot, but they stretch enough to where the lip of the wheel can be right at like the fender and the tire can tuck underneath the car. So I'm going to get these on. Since the 700 isn't finished yet, as you guys saw in the last episode, I did get it running. I'm dealing with some weird idle issues in it, some intermittent idle issues. I thought it was timing, but since it's intermittent, I'm wondering if it's just a carburetor clean issue or possibly a plug. But that being said, I still need to get a throttle cable in it. Luckily, my friend Sam, who lives locally, thinks he has an extra one. So I'm hoping by tonight or tomorrow I've got that in hand. And we can take the 700 for its first test drive with the 1600 dual port in it. We're getting close. But since that's tied up on the lift at the moment, we're going to put the spacers in the EF outside since we're in a small window of no rain today. All right, you'll notice that the Enkeis are pretty sunk underneath the car. Car looks great on the wheels, especially at this ride height. I really want to bring the front down just a little bit more, but these are on factory length shocks. I think they're Coney shocks with Skunk 2 sleeve coilovers. I really don't have the shock travel I should have with the car this low. With the spacers, I think I might take the front down a couple cranks. Cross my fingers that I don't lose any ride quality. The car looks great, especially from a side profile, but once you look at it at a quarter shot or dead on, you can really see how sunken the wheels are. This is the Easy Route 25 mil spacers. They're bolt-on, they're not a free-floating spacer, and they've got a hub bore for the Hondas, so this is no problem at all. If you know motorsport, you know that they're running spacers on race cars. So running a 25 mil bolt-on spacer on a little Honda EF box is not anything to be concerned about as far as wheel bearing life or even safety. After I get the spacers on, I'll probably wash it and give you guys a good look at the car. Kind of cleaned up with the spacers on. We'll take it for a drive, make sure nothing rubs, make sure everything's good height-wise, and we'll see how it goes from there. And yes, for all of you guys asking and recommending in the comments, the last time you saw the EF on the channel, I do have some really good plastic restore that I'm going to put on the bumpers and the trim and try to clean the whole car up. All right, well, this made the world of difference. Just spacing it out 25 millimeters front and rear. The car looks totally different. It's amazing what just filling the wheel well out track width wise does for the look of a car, especially when the car's lowered. I went down the last few turns I could go on the front perches. Hopefully don't see an aggressive change in ride quality for the worst. Obviously it's not going to get any better. The thing I'm fearing is the rear. The rear is currently sitting on the inner fender lip, and I really wanted to do whatever I could to not have to roll these because it's got the factory plastic lip liner. The rear's isn't an entire plastic wheel well like it is in the front. The rear is just a little strip of plastic that goes along that lip of the arch, and I really don't want to remove that or roll it or anything like that. As it is, the car's on 16, so raising the car anymore is really might make it look a little funky. Being a 16, since these cars look best on 14s or 15s. We'll see. I'm gonna back it up now, see how bad it rubs. It might just have to settle. I'm hoping with the upper and lower control arm setup on these Civics that it negative cambers a little bit, that suspension settles, and it's enough to pull that tire away from the inner wheel well. All right, let's move it under its own power and see if the suspension moves at all. Because as it is right now, the car is literally sitting on the sidewall of the tires. That's actually the mud flap making that noise. Let's go forward. I'm not hearing anything yet. I think it's settled. That's not making any noise. What you're hearing there is the mud flap dragging. Yeah, it's kind of crazy that this isn't rubbing right now. Maybe we'll get away with just a little bit of rub and it won't be that bad. That's what I'm hoping. The front's definitely lower. That mud flap is dragging in the yard, which it was kind of done doing. It had self-clearanced enough. Well, let me torque down the wheels, make sure everything's good there. We'll go for a quick drive. Okay, here we go. Mud flap noise. I went back up the driveway just to make sure it wasn't rubbing like real bad. But now I can't hear it anymore. So I'm really hoping it just was plastic guard on rubber and both have worked away just a little bit. Can't hear it right now. All right, well, I washed the EF, got it cleaned up. Those wheels were horrendous looking, but the car looks 100% better on these spacers. Just 25 mil front and rear. Looks like a totally different car, especially if you've been driving it around like I have with the sunken look for the last couple of months. This just makes all the difference. So I am super stoked on this. It wasn't worthy of an episode to just put spacers on, but I figured this would be a great ending to this episode since I didn't film enough in Fort Myers for EUROTRIPPER. I'd modify the rear arches if it wasn't all original paint and a one-owner car that was unmolested. Any of you guys who wouldn't have done this to this car, nothing's irreplaceable. It's just got coilovers bolted in with late model EF lower control arms. That's all that's been done to this car. The engine has been basically restored. My friend Kyle went to the whole top end of the motor, whole new head, timing belt, throttle body and valve cover. Casings have all been restored. It's a beautiful car. I mean, original paint, so it's quite faded single stage paint, and obviously the plastics need to be cleaned up, but the car looks great. Well, it's a perfect ending to the first day back in the shop. I think I'm gonna vend at Import Alliance Atlanta on March 25th, I believe. It's the end of March. Matt Phillips from Lord Lifestyle, my friend Mason from Riverside have both basically convinced me to vend there. We'll see if I can pull a rabbit out of a hat for merchandise. But I gotta thank Don Napier, who runs Import Alliance, for basically tugging on me enough to make me want to vend at that show. I'm hoping I can get things done in time to make it happen because Riverside is April 15th, just a few weeks later. And that was my deadline to get the new booth and all the merchandise set in time. One last thanks. Thank you guys so much for all of your orders on the Ludwig's Garage hoodies. Those sold out in under a week. I can't thank you guys enough for all of the support there and all of your support over on the Patreon. Next episode, we're hopefully driving to 700. Not much left to do there. Fingers crossed. I'll see you guys in the next episode.